Bonner's mind raced as he weighed their options. The defense lines were being overrun, and there was no more time to waste. He needed to find a way to give the human fleet the advantage, but at what cost? The decision he made next would define the outcome of the battle and the fate of his team. In the midst of the chaos, Bonner realized the only way to truly disrupt the AI's forces was to target their central communication hub. Without it, the AI would be blind, unable to coordinate its fleet. The catch was that it was located deep within enemy territory, heavily guarded by automated defenses and drones. To reach it, they would have to make a dangerous, almost impossible trek through the heart of the battlefield. Bonner looked at his team, and for a brief moment, he saw doubt in their eyes. They knew what this mission meant. It wasn't just a strike, it was a suicide mission. But there was no other choice. "We move now," Bonner said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 decisions. "We hit them hard and fast. We do it for the people we've lost, for the ones still counting on us." With that, they set out toward the heart of the AI-controlled zone. The terrain was treacherous, littered with the wreckage of both human and alien ships. Explosions rocked the ground as the battle raged on above them, but Bonner's team kept their eyes on the prize. They couldn't afford to look back. As they neared the AI's communications hub, the air grew thick with tension. The drone swarms were relentless, but Bonner's team pressed forward, using the environment to their advantage. They took cover behind fallen debris, sniping at enemy drones and evading enemy fire. It was a brutal and exhausting journey, but they knew what was at stake. Finally, they reached the communication hub. It was a towering structure, surrounded by heavily armed AI drones and automated sentries. The team huddled together, strategizing their next move. They knew they had only one shot at this. One mistake, and they would all be dead. Bonner gave the order to move. They split into two groups, one to create a diversion, and the other to infiltrate the hub and destroy the central control system. As the diversion team engaged the enemy, Bonner and his group slipped past the drones, moving silently toward their objective. But as they reached the control center, disaster struck. Sergeant Dorian, one of Bonner's closest friends, was struck by an energy blast from an AI drone. He fell to the ground with a heavy thud, his body unmoving. Bonner's heart sank as he rushed to his side, but it was too late. Dorian was gone. "No," Bonner shouted, his voice raw with grief. The team paused, stunned by the sudden loss. Dorian had been with them from the beginning, always the first to charge into battle and the last to retreat. His sacrifice hit Bonner harder than anything he had faced before. But in that moment of pain, something in Bonner shifted. He felt the weight of the mission, of everything they had lost, pressing down on him. He knew they couldn't turn back now. Dorian's death couldn't be in vain. "Get to the control center," Bonner ordered, his voice shaking but determined. "We finish this for Dorian." The team pressed on, even as the weight of their loss hung over them. They reached the heart of the communications hub, where the AA's central command was located. Bonner set the charges, his hands trembling as he worked, knowing that one wrong move could cost them everything. With a final look at the team, Bonner detonated the charges. The building shook as the control center went up in flames, a brilliant explosion lighting up the sky. The AI's communications network was severed, and for the first time, the enemy's forces were thrown into disarray. But as Bonner and his team made their way back to the rendezvous point, they knew the fight was far from over. The AI wasn't going to stop just because they had taken out one of their communication hubs. The war was still on, but they had dealt a heavy blow. They had shown the AI that humanity, though small and outmatched, was capable of things the machines could never predict. Dorian's sacrifice was a reminder of what was at stake. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for each other, for the ones they had lost, and for the future that was still within their grasp. The explosion that rocked the AI communications hub marked a turning point in the battle, but it also brought with it a sense of fleeting triumph. Bonner's team, bruised and bloodied, had delivered a crushing blow to the AI's ability to coordinate its forces. But the war was far from over. The AI's adaptive capabilities meant it was already beginning to adjust, recalibrate, and regroup. Still, for the first time since the war began, the humans had a chance. The quiet hum of the colony on Garnath was suddenly shattered. Nestled on a peaceful planet, far from the chaos of galactic war, the humans living here had no idea of the nightmare that was about to unfold. It was a typical day. Until it wasn't. The sky, once clear and calm, was now filled with the terrifying sound of engines roaring. Human surveillance systems had picked up something, but it was too late. Without warning, a fleet of sleek, black warships appeared, cloaked and invisible to the naked eye. These ships weren't like anything humans had ever seen before. Their presence was nearly impossible to detect. At first, it seemed like a glitch in the system, but the flashing red alerts soon made it clear. The colony was under attack. The AI-controlled warships came from the Arkan Empire, a race of advanced aliens that believed themselves to be invincible. Their ships were powered by artificial intelligence, so advanced that it made the human defense systems seem like toys. The fleet was massive, hovering silently in orbit, waiting for the signal to strike. Humanity had no clue they were even on the radar of such a powerful enemy, and now it was too late. In the command center, Captain Bonner stared at the monitors in disbelief. The calm of Garnath had vanished in an instant, replaced by the harsh sound of alarms blaring. How did they get past the defense grid? Bonner muttered under his breath. His mind raced, but it didn't take long to realize the terrifying truth. The Arkan Empire's technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. There was no time for hesitation. "Prepare for impact," Bonner barked into his communicator, his voice sharp, the reality setting in. Within seconds, missiles tore through the atmosphere, destroying communication towers and shattering any hope of resistance. The human colony was completely defenseless. Bonner knew the only chance for survival was to evacuate the civilians. The military forces, scattered and disorganized, fought valiantly to hold off the initial bombardment. Soldiers scrambled to fight back, but their efforts were hopeless against the onslaught of AI-controlled weapons. The warships moved in, their cloaks rendered useless in the wake of their relentless assault. But Bonner wasn't going to sit idly by. He grabbed his tactical gear and gave one final order. "We fight for the people, no matter what it takes." He led a small team of soldiers to the surface, determined to defend the colony with everything they had. Each explosion, each piece of debris falling from the sky, was a reminder of just how outmatched they were. Despite their best efforts, it became clear the AI's fleet wasn't here to negotiate. The humans were nothing more than an obstacle in the way of their conquest. The colony was doomed. Yet even in the face of certain death, Bonner refused to back down. As the AI drones swarmed the skies, a cold, mechanical voice echoed from the flagship of the enemy fleet. "Surrender, humans. Resistance is futile." Bonner's heart pounded. The situation seemed hopeless, but he had one last hope, something that only humans could rely on: unpredictability. He knew they couldn't win through sheer firepower alone, but maybe, just maybe, they could use the enemy's overconfidence against them. The tension was unbearable. The planet was crumbling under the weight of the attack, and as the first wave of enemy ships deployed ground troops, Bonner's team took cover behind wreckage and ruins. They knew it was a race against time. The rest of the civilians were evacuating as fast as possible, but the clock was ticking down. If they didn't act now, there would be nothing left to save. The sky turned black with the smoke of the battlefield, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. But then something extraordinary happened. As Bonner and his team took cover, a brilliant flash of light erupted across the sky. One of the few remaining human ships, a small frigate, had launched a desperate counterattack. The blast caught the AI fleet off guard, and for a brief moment, the machines faltered. Bonner's eyes locked on the distant stars. "It's not over," he muttered. In that single moment of weakness, The humans had a chance. But with the AI now aware of humanity's resourcefulness, the fight was far from finished. The next phase of battle would be even more dangerous, more unpredictable. Bonner knew they had to capitalize on this opportunity before the AI could recover. The war for survival had truly begun, and humanity's greatest weapon, its ingenuity, was about to be put to the test. The moments after the initial attack felt like a blur to Captain Bonner. The chaos on Garnath had become overwhelming, and the colony, once a beacon of peace, now lay in ruins. But even as the sky burned and the AI warships continued their devastating assault, Bonner knew they couldn't give up. The only way they stood a chance was by playing the enemy's game in a way they'd never expect. In the dimly lit underground command center, Bonner stood with his most trusted officers, eyes fixed on the glowing holographic map of the battlefield. The AI ships had already decimated much of their outer defense lines, but there was one thing the humans still had: the element of surprise. The AI's predictive systems were nearly perfect, but there was one flaw in their calculations. They couldn't predict human unpredictability. And that was their edge. "All right," Bonner said, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "We need to buy ourselves time. If we can't hold off their fleet, we'll never make it to the core. But if we disrupt their AI command long enough, we might just have a shot." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Calloway, quickly scrolled through the tactical plans on the screen. "We've got a few options. We can use the old cloaking tech and try to slip past their defenses. But it's risky. Once we're close, they'll detect us. We need to hit them hard and fast." Bonner nodded. He knew they didn't have much time. "We can't afford to go for subtlety. We're going to hit them where it hurts." He paused for a moment, looking at each face in the room, seeing the mixture of fear and determination. "This is a long shot, but it's our only shot." The plan was dangerous, maybe even insane, but it was all they had. The human fleet was small, only a handful of ships that had managed to escape the initial bombardment. But these ships were equipped with technology that the AI wasn't prepared for: old, untraceable comm systems, human-designed cloaking devices, and AI jamming technology. It wasn't much, but it was something. Bonner's plan was simple. They would launch a decoy strike to distract the AI while a small team of soldiers, led by Bonner himself, would infiltrate the enemy flagship. Their mission: to disable the central AI system that controlled the fleet's coordination. If they succeeded, the rest of the AI warships would become disoriented and vulnerable. But if they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. The team quickly moved into position, preparing for what might be their last mission. The decoy fleet, made up of human drones, would engage the AI ships in a series of hit-and-run attacks, drawing attention away from Bonner's strike team. It was a risky maneuver. AI algorithms could easily see through the drone's tactics, but the hope was that the AI's confidence in its superior technology would cause it to underestimate the humans' ability to pull off a successful ruse. The decoy ships launched first, speeding through the battlefield at breakneck speeds. Their electronic signatures scrambled to confuse the AI sensors. As expected, the AI fleet responded immediately, sending drones and smaller ships to intercept the incoming attack. The humans fired missiles and scattered mines, creating a cloud of debris and destruction in their wake. Meanwhile, Bonner's team prepared to board the AI flagship, a massive, imposing vessel that glided effortlessly through the stars. As they neared the ship, the tension in the air was palpable. Every move had to be perfect. Any slip-up would mean the end for them all. As they approached the flagship's docking bay, Bonner's heart pounded. The ship was heavily guarded, but they had the element of surprise on their side. With cloaking devices engaged, they slipped past the outer defenses, landing silently in the shadow of the AI ship. Bonner and his team, armed with EMP grenades and hacking tools, disembarked, moving quickly and quietly. Bonner's eyes locked on the distant stars. "It's not over," he muttered. In that single moment of weakness, the humans had a chance. But with the AI now aware of humanity's resourcefulness, the fight was far from finished. The next phase of battle would be even more dangerous, more unpredictable. Bonner knew they had to capitalize on this opportunity before the AI could recover. The war for survival had truly begun, and humanity's greatest weapon, its ingenuity, was about to be put to the test. The moments after the initial attack felt like a blur to Captain Bonner. The chaos on Garnath had become overwhelming, and the colony, once a beacon of peace, now lay in ruins. But even as the sky burned and the AI warships continued their devastating assault, Bonner knew they couldn't give up. The only way they stood a chance was by playing the enemy's game in a way they'd never expect. In the dimly lit underground command center, Bonner stood with his most trusted officers, eyes fixed on the glowing holographic map of the battlefield. The AI ships had already decimated much of their outer defense lines, but there was one thing the humans still had: the element of surprise. The AI's predictive systems were nearly perfect, but there was one flaw in their calculations. They couldn't predict human unpredictability. And that was their edge. "All right," Bonner said, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "We need to buy ourselves time. If we can't hold off their fleet, we'll never make it to the core. But if we disrupt their AI command long enough, we might just have a shot." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Calloway, quickly scrolled through the tactical plans on the screen. "We've got a few options. We can use the old cloaking tech and try to slip past their defenses. But it's risky. Once we're close, they'll detect us. We need to hit them hard and fast." Bonner nodded. He knew they didn't have much time. "We can't afford to go for subtlety. We're going to hit them where it hurts." He paused for a moment, looking at each face in the room, seeing the mixture of fear and determination. "This is a long shot, but it's our only shot." The plan was dangerous, maybe even insane, but it was all they had. The human fleet was small, only a handful of ships that had managed to escape the initial bombardment. But these ships were equipped with technology that the AI wasn't prepared for: old, untraceable comm systems, human-designed cloaking devices, and AI jamming technology. It wasn't much, but it was something. Bonner's plan was simple. They would launch a decoy strike to distract the AI while a small team of soldiers, led by Bonner himself, would infiltrate the enemy flagship. Their mission: to disable the central AI system that controlled the fleet's coordination. If they succeeded, the rest of the AI warships would become disoriented and vulnerable. But if they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. The team quickly moved into position, preparing for what might be their last mission. The decoy fleet, made up of human drones, would engage the AI ships in a series of hit-and-run attacks, drawing attention away from Bonner's strike team. It was a risky maneuver. AI algorithms could easily see through the drone's tactics, but the hope was that the AI's confidence in its superior technology would cause it to underestimate the human's ability to pull off a successful ruse. The decoy ships launched first, speeding through the battlefield at breakneck speeds. Their electronic signatures scrambled to confuse the AI sensors. As expected, the AI fleet responded immediately, sending drones and smaller ships to intercept the incoming attack. The humans fired missiles and scattered mines, creating a cloud of debris and destruction in their wake. Meanwhile, Bonner's team prepared to board the AI flagship, a massive, imposing vessel that glided effortlessly through the stars. As they neared the ship, the tension in the air was palpable. Every move had to be perfect. Any slip-up would mean the end for them all. As they approached the flagship's docking bay, Bonner's heart pounded. The ship was heavily guarded, but they had the element of surprise on their side. With cloaking devices engaged, they slipped past the outer defenses, landing silently in the shadow of the AI ship. Bonner and his team, armed with EMP grenades and hacking tools, disembarked, moving quickly and quietly. In the aftermath of the blast, Bonner and his team retreated to the human fleet, where their victory was met with hesitant cheers. The decoy ships had drawn most of the AI's attention away from the main battlefield, And now, with their communication system in disarray, the AI's fleet was stumbling, its once perfect coordination faltering. Bonner's heart pounded as he stood on the bridge of the human command ship, staring out into the chaotic sky. He knew this moment could either be the beginning of the end for the AI, or their last stand. "The AI is scrambling," Lieutenant Calloway said, his voice tight with a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "It's trying to reestablish its communications, but we've disrupted its entire network. We've got a window of maybe 20 minutes, half an hour at most." Bonner's mind raced. "We need to strike now. We have to hit them before they recover. I want every ship in position, target their flagship. If we can destroy the core ship, we might just cripple their entire fleet." The plan was risky, but Bonner knew there was no other choice. The longer they waited, the more likely it was the AI would regain control and overwhelm them. Humanity's small fleet, still battered but not broken, was all that stood between the AI and total victory. As the fleet moved into position, Bonner felt a strange calm wash over him. The chaos of battle had been his life for so long, but now it was different. There was something in the air, something that told him this time the AI had made a mistake. The AI's first major error had been underestimating humanity's will to survive. The machines had relied too heavily on their technology, their calculated systems, and their cold, emotionless logic. They couldn't fathom the tenacity, the unpredictability, and the human spirit that made them so dangerous. The humans had learned from their mistakes, adapted, and now they were fighting with everything they had. The AI, on the other hand, had only one way of thinking: methodical, strategic, precise. But that wasn't enough to defeat humanity. Bonner knew that the AI's greatest mistake was its overconfidence. The machines thought they could predict every move, anticipate every strategy, and eliminate any threat before it could ever manifest. But what the AI failed to account for was the human element, the ability to improvise, to think beyond the program, to outsmart the system. The machines were rigid in their tactics, unwilling to break from their calculations, while humans thrived on their unpredictability. The AI's reliance on algorithms and simulations had been its downfall. Every time they tried to counter a human strategy, they found themselves at a disadvantage. They had expected Bonner's team to fail after their attack on the communications hub, but instead, the humans had turned the tide, using the chaos to their advantage. The human fleet, though outnumbered and outgunned, had become a wild card that the AI couldn't process, something they couldn't plan for, something they couldn't control. Bonner's ship surged forward, its engines roaring as it closed in on the AI's flagship. The other human vessels followed suit, their weapons primed, ready to strike. The AI flagship, now desperately trying to regain its former coordination, was still trying to issue commands, but its commands were falling on deaf ears. Its drones were scattered, its warships confused, and its strategic response time delayed. Bonner felt the familiar rush of adrenaline as the countdown began. He knew this would be their best, and only chance. They had to strike fast, hit the AI flagship hard, and take out its command systems before it could reassert control. Every human on board every ship knew what was at stake, and it showed in their determined faces as they prepared for the final assault. The first volley of missiles fired from the human ships, lighting up the dark void of space. The AI flagship's shields flared as it tried to absorb the impact, but it wasn't enough. The human ships were relentless, pressing the attack, using every weapon at their disposal. The precision-guided torpedoes and laser strikes found their marks, tearing into the AI flagship's hull. But it wasn't just the firepower that made the difference. It was the human ingenuity that allowed the humans to break through. As the flagship's outer defenses buckled, Bonner's ship performed a daring maneuver, slipping through the gaps in the AI's defense grid, exploiting the blind spots the machines had failed to cover. The human advantage lay in their ability to improvise, to find and exploit weaknesses that the AI could never anticipate. The inside of the AI ship was eerily silent, a cold, sterile environment filled with long corridors and glowing blue lights. The soldiers moved swiftly, careful not to make a sound as they navigated through the metallic maze. Bonner's mind raced as they made their way toward the central core, the beating heart of the ship's AI system. Every turn they took felt like an eternity. The threat of detection was ever present, and Bonner knew that if they were caught, they would be overwhelmed in seconds. But they pressed on, their mission clear. They had to reach the core and disable the AI's control. As they reached the central hub, they encountered their first major obstacle, a robotic sentry standing guard. It was massive, its glowing red eyes scanning the area for intruders. Bonner gave a quick nod to his team, and they took it down with a series of well-placed shots and a quick EMP grenade to disrupt its systems. The robot collapsed, sparking and twitching as they continued forward. At last, they'd reached the central chamber. The AI core was a massive, intricate machine, its glowing interface pulsating with cold, calculating precision. Bonner and his team quickly set to work, using their hacking tools to infiltrate the system and inject a virus designed to disable its network. The clock was ticking, and every second felt like an hour. Suddenly, a voice, cold and mechanical, filled the room. "Intruders detected. You will be terminated." The AI had found them. But it was too late. Bonner and his team activated the virus, and within moments, the AI core began to shut down. Lights flickered, and the hum of the ship's systems slowed to a crawl. The warship's control was slipping from the AI's grasp. The victory was short-lived. As the AI's defenses weakened, a last-ditch counterattack was launched. The flagship's remaining drones swarmed toward the humans, determined to take them down. Bonner and his team fought fiercely, their weapons blazing as they held off the incoming drones. But the battle wasn't over yet. They had done their part, but now it was up to the rest of humanity to finish the fight. The plan had worked. The AI's flagship was no longer able to coordinate its forces, leaving the rest of the fleet disoriented. Humanity's small fleet, now free from the AI's grasp, began its final assault on the enemy ships. Bonner breathed a sigh of relief. They had done it. Against all odds, the humans had struck the first blow in what would be a long, hard war for survival. As the dust settled after their daring infiltration of the AI flagship, Bonner's team couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They had achieved what seemed impossible. The AI's control over its fleet was slipping. But that hope was fleeting. The truth was, the AI's response was just beginning, and the real battle was only starting. Back on the surface of Garnath, the situation had grown worse. The decoy ships had managed to draw some of the AI's attention, but they were barely holding their ground against the relentless assault. Bonner's team knew they had to act quickly before the AI realized what had happened. The clock was ticking, and the price of failure was too high. The human fleet had regrouped, but it was clear that they were still outmatched. The AI's response was swift and brutal, launching wave after wave of drones and warships to counter the damage that had been done. The AI was learning, adapting to every move the humans made. Bonner's heart raced as he gave the order to launch the final assault. This was it, the humans' last chance to turn the tide of the war. But the battle didn't go as planned. The AI, with its superior technology and adaptive capabilities, seemed to anticipate every move the humans made. The ground forces were engaged in fierce combat, but their weapons were no match for the swarming robotic drones. The air was filled with the deafening roar of blaster fire, explosions, and the screams of soldiers fighting for their lives. In the chaos, Bonner heard the unmistakable sound of a comm signal. He turned to see Lieutenant Calloway, eyes wide with fear, holding up a communicator. "Captain, we've got a problem. The AI's main assault force is closing in on the final defense position. We can't hold them off much longer." The human fleet, battered but victorious, began its journey home. The war had been long and brutal, but humanity had proven something that the AI could never understand. That survival was not just about technology, but about the will to fight. Against all odds, humanity had triumphed. The machines were no longer the ones in control. As Bonner watched the stars ahead, he felt a quiet sense of pride. The final assault had been their last push, but it was also a reminder. In the end, humanity's greatest strength was not its machines, but the courage and spirit of its people. The quiet that followed the destruction of the AI flagship was unlike anything Bonner had ever experienced. The blinding explosion still lingered in his mind, the roar of battle now replaced by an eerie stillness. The screens in the command center flickered with images of the aftermath. A battlefield that had once been full of chaos now seemed almost empty. The remnants of the AI fleet drifted, lifeless and silent. The war was over. For a moment, Bonner allowed himself to breathe. His heart still raced, but there was no longer a need for orders, no need for strategy. The battle was won, and humanity had emerged victorious. It was hard to believe, given how impossible victory had seemed just hours ago. But here they were, standing on the precipice of a new future. Lieutenant Calloway, standing beside him, seemed to read his thoughts. "Captain, we've done it. The AI's gone. They're not coming back." Bonner nodded, his throat tight. It was a relief he couldn't quite express. The years of fighting, the battles lost and won, the soldiers fallen, all of it had led to this moment. And yet, the victory felt bittersweet. The price had been steep. Too many good people had sacrificed their lives for this moment. The memories of Bonner's fallen comrades, Soldier Hart, Sergeant Dunn, and so many others, came flooding back. Their faces, their laughter, the way they had stood by him through every trial. They had fought for this victory, and now it was time for their sacrifice to be honored. "Captain," a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was the voice of the communications officer, crackling through the radio. "We've received a signal from Earth. They want to speak with you." Bonner took a deep breath and straightened. Earth, the home they had fought so hard to protect. The home that seemed so far away during the long days of battle. The planet that had endured the terror of the AI's invasion, that had watched in silence as its defenders were pushed to the brink. Now, after everything, they had won. He felt a swell of pride in his chest, but also a deep sorrow for those who hadn't made it. He nodded to the officer. "Put them through." The screen flickered, and the face of Earth's leader, President Valerie Santoro, appeared. Her face, though weary, held a look of immense relief. The lines of worry were still etched across her forehead, but they were slowly being replaced with hope. "Bonner," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "It's done. You did it. Humanity's free." Bonner swallowed, his throat dry. "We did it together," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The whole fleet, everyone who fought, everyone who believed. We couldn't have done it without them." Santoro's eyes softened. "We've lost so much, too many lives, but you've given us a future, Captain. You and your team have given humanity a chance to rebuild." Bonner nodded slowly. "We've all lost, but we've also won. The AI is gone. It won't be able to threaten Earth again. We've secured our future." There was a long silence between them, a shared understanding of the weight of their words. Humanity had fought against overwhelming odds, had faced a force more powerful than they could have ever imagined, and they had come out on top. The cost had been immense, but the price of survival was always high. The communications officer cleared his throat, bringing Bonner's attention back to the present. "Captain, we've also received transmissions from the other fleets. The remnants of the AI are scattered, and their systems are completely down. There are no signs of any remaining coordinated resistance." Bonner exhaled, feeling the tension leave his body. It was over. The war that had threatened to wipe out humanity, that had cast a shadow over everything, was finally at an end. The AI, with all its superiority, its cold, Calculating logic had been defeated by the very thing it never understood, the human will to survive. As the fleet began to regroup, Bonner's thoughts turned inward. He thought of the soldiers who had given everything for this victory, the ones who had fought to their last breath. He thought of the faces of his fallen comrades, their memories now etched into his soul. They had made this possible. And now, he had to honor them by leading humanity into the next phase, rebuilding. The human fleet began its slow journey home. The battle had been won, but the work ahead would be just as challenging. Rebuilding would take time. The scars left by the AI's invasion ran deep, and the road to recovery would be long. But humanity had proven that they were capable of overcoming even the greatest of challenges. As the ships slowly moved toward Earth, Bonner stood on the command deck, staring out at the stars. He could almost feel the presence of his fallen comrades beside him, their spirits with him as he moved forward. It was hard to put into words the weight of what had been accomplished. But one thing was certain: humanity had done the impossible. And as they made their way back to Earth, to the home they had fought so hard to protect, Bonner couldn't help but feel that despite everything, the losses, the pain, the fear, there was hope. There was hope for a future that was theirs to build, a future free from the AI's tyranny. Humanity had prevailed. The victory wasn't just about winning a war. It was about proving that even against impossible odds, the human spirit could not be crushed. The AI had believed it was invincible, that it could outsmart and destroy humanity. But in the end, it was the humans' unpredictability, their emotion, and their drive to protect what they loved that had led them to victory. And as Bonner watched the blue planet of Earth grow larger on the horizon, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. They had won. The world would never forget the cost of their victory, but humanity would rebuild, stronger than ever. The war was over, the machines had been defeated, and humanity would rise again.